I can't control it all the time. Like we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It also just got very dark in here.
I know.
The
I
mood
thought that
has
was
been-
something that you did.
Yeah, let me turn down the skylight real quick. It's not real. It is just a light that I installed up there. Well, now that the sun has set in the middle of the day and the mood has been set, what do you say we make a podcast?
Yeah.
I think it's time.
I'm ready for it.
Aly, thank you so much for being down to do this.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate it. You mentioned right before we started recording that you haven't done a podcast before.
No, my
So
first one.
I super appreciate not only the fact that we do not know each other.
Right.
So the fact that you were down to be like, I'll go meet this guy and do a podcast, but it's also your first podcast. So thank you so much for being down to come on the show and talk all things about pretty much all the things. And I can already tell we're just going to dive into a billion different things.
Yeah.
As soon as you got here, it was like, yeah, this about life and that about life and that about life. Like, all right.
I know. Well, I thought about it. I was like, what are we going to talk about? Like, what questions is he going to ask me? And then I already saw that. Yeah, it'll be everything.
Yes,
So,
yes, it will be everything. Yeah, that's what sometimes when people are coming on the show, they're like, so what specific things do you want to talk about? And I'm like, you and your entire life and everything you've ever done. And they're like, all right, cool.
Cool.
So
How do I prepare for that?
Any specific questions you have for me? And I'm like, nope, not at all. No idea what I'm going to ask until we get there.
Great.
But one thing I do want to start with and want to ask is obviously, I'm familiar with Goodland Market, Goodland Brand, all this sort of stuff. But again, we are literally getting to know each other for the first time. There also might be some first-time listeners checking this out as well. I would love to hear upfront from you, like a little bit about Goodland, what it is, but also like what you do in general.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Because
Just open the floodgates.
Yeah, right. Well, so Goodland is it's hard sometimes to talk about it because I feel like we do so much. So right now what I call it a lifestyle brand. I know sometimes that sounds like cliche but really that's what it is. I mean, we started just making eco-friendly products. That's kind of how it started. So Mike Minix, who owns the business, and his sister during COVID, I think both were kind of like, what are we doing? What do we want to do? I think that's a time when a lot of small businesses started also. A lot of entrepreneurs were like, you know what, let's pivot, let's try something different. And so they started making just kind of like beauty products, household products, things that were low impact on the environment. And they were like, this is something that we want. I bet other people would like this too. So that's kind of how the products started being developed. And then they both have a love for plants, which I do too. That's how I got into it kind of. So then they started making concrete pots, having the planters, doing plants. So that's like how the brand started, I think. That's how like the retail, all the products got developed. And then this whole side of this like community building got brought in because the space really is meant for people to be in. So yes, we have this like retail component, and I think that's the base of it, but also bringing people together and creating this community and just having a space for people to come together. So that's like a lot of what Goodland is at the basis, I think.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about because I'm like, it's just so much.
Right.
And so that's just having the space. That's how I found Goodland. So I call myself like the poster child of Franklinton Fridays because I think I have like the best story ever. So in 2021, I was working at Abercrombie and I was a photo editor. And that was a time, like it was during COVID. Like I think I started in 2020. So it was like prime time COVID. And I was like, am I going to die? Like, do I need to get health insurance?
Right.
And so I thankfully got a job with Abercrombie working from home. And it really just like wasn't me. It was like I have a background in photography. I went to school for photography. And so I know how I'd love to edit photos, but like, do I love to edit them all the time for a full-time job? Not necessarily. So at that time I was just like not feeling it. I was working from home and there were times where I was like finding myself sitting at my desk, like crying, just like literally so upset. And we went to a Franklinton Friday, and I literally had no idea about Franklinton at all. Like I'd never been to Franklinton. I'd never been to a Franklinton Friday, didn't know it existed. And we went with a couple of our friends, and I went into Goodland, and I was like, this is so fucking cool. Like this is such an awesome space. I don't really understand it fully, but I love being here. And I met Mike, the owner, and I was like, hey, you seem like a cool dude. This is awesome. I started following them on Instagram. And like a couple days later, they posted that they were hiring. And I like didn't even read the rest of it. I was like, oh my God, this is a sign. And so I sent Mike an email, and it was like such a long, confusing email because I was like, I saw that you're hiring. I don't even really like know what this position is or what you guys do, but I know that I hate what I'm doing right now and I need a change, and I'm like open to coming in, figuring out what you do if I can have the opportunity. And I was like, I have zero retail experience. I have zero marketing experience. So I have like nothing that you're really looking for, but I have excitement and I have passion that I think could fit well there. And so we met and like immediately just bonded. And so that was 3.5 years ago. And it's been an insane journey, I think. Like working for small businesses is just a different beast, and it's always exciting, but and also very hard sometimes,
Right.
you know, because it's always changing. But I've really just I came in, and my position, I think we called me like a general manager, and I was like, whatever that means, okay, I could be a general manager,
I can
sure.
generally manage some things. We're good.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I really the only like experience I had that was actually relevant there was taking care of plants. That was it. I was like, okay, like I'm a plant mom. I got this.
Perfect.
But that was it. So now it's really, I've kind of done a lot. I mean, I've started doing like the social media, started doing the marketing, you know, as much, I'm not like trained in it, right? So it's all like just self-taught things and
Yeah.
learning as we go. And but then now it's like grown to where I'm like, you know, I know how to do those things, but what I'm really good at, I think, is partnerships and working with people, collaborations, planning events. Those are the things that I really enjoy doing with Goodland right now. And then that's also kind of like how the Good Market stemmed, where it's like, okay, what if we do a really good job at doing it here inside Goodland, but like, could we do a whole market? Like, could we bring together 60 local small businesses, makers, vintage finders, all of those people, and then bring them together, create an atmosphere, and then also like get people to come and be invested in this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's where we are now.
So how do you go about creating a market? Because that so much of what you just said there
I said a lot.
is
Sorry.
but I love all of it because I feel like that is that community element, and not community for the sake of like marketing a community or whatever, but like literally like creating spaces to bring people together to showcase different things that different people do, and you know, all this sort of stuff. Like I over the last handful of years have formed like a small obsession with that, where I'm like, oh man, one day I would love to, you know, operate like a third space, you know, that thing that now pretty much everybody's opening everywhere, but like for good reason. But it's like, you know, things like that where I'm like, oh, I really do love bringing people together and showcasing different things and sharing different things. So the idea of like how you also build a market and like how do you bring together all these different vendors and makers and creators and all this sort of stuff. Walk me through like that idea, like from like where it pops up of like, okay, I think this would be cool, but like, how do you lay the groundwork for that? Like, how do you create a market?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex situation, and I think ours is a little bit different than other people. So the way the Good Market started, which everyone calls it Goodland Market, we didn't know what to call it. So we were like, let's just use the word good in everything. So Good Market. And so before we started the Good Market in 2023, there was another market that has always happened at Franklinton Fridays, and there was a situation where they weren't going to continue that market, and we saw how vital that was for the businesses inside Chrome Edge and 400, and we were like, this just is another big event to bring people down here when we have open studios. So us as a business, we were like, this has to continue. And so we were like, what if we just did this, you know? And then we had a lot of conversations with people in the community, in the neighborhood, and we were like, do we want to see this continue? Do you think this is something that we can do? Like, do you have faith in us basically to like take this on? And we had so much support that we were like, let's just try it. Let's do it. And that first year, we like did not know what we were doing. We've done a lot of markets as the vendor for Goodland. And so I have a lot of experience being the vendor, but like being the organizer of a market, I didn't have any. But I had faith in myself, honestly. I was like, we can do this. Like this feels attainable. And so the first year, it was like just a lot of learning. It was like, how do we how do we set it up really? You know, how do we create the layout? Who's going to come to this? And I think that using Goodland, the actual brand as the basis, people knew us. And I think a lot of people understood our vibe and they trusted us. So that drew people to want to come and be vendors. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah.
Because that's where I've seen a lot of people draw the connections with us. They're like, oh, okay, it's like, it's Aly now. You know, it's like, okay, with the Good Market, we know what they do, we know what they're capable of, so we trust them. And so I think that's like how we got the vendors to trust us, because that's how it feels now. It feels like people like to work with us and they want to come and be a part of the events. I have some vendors that are like, I just like to come because it's fun, you know? And it's like, are we ever going to be like German Village Makers Market? You know, are we ever going to be Hops on High, right? Shutting down High Street. Are we going to be that? I don't think that we need to be. And I don't really see like any of it as competition. I see it as just like all these people have their niches, right? And they like do it really well. And we just have like that Franklinton vibe. Like, we're kind of DIY. We're kind of like a nighttime street party. Yeah, and that's kind of where we are now. So this year we're moving it out of the parking lot, which was very DIY, very like gravel, obviously, right? Gravel.
Right.
And so now we're like, let's just shut down Town Street. Like, let's really make it be known what we're doing and bring more attention to Franklinton in general. So that was like a whole other learning part to it, because I was like, how do you shut down a street? I have no idea. Yeah.
You just toss some cones up and be like, this is it, right?
And like, okay, this is cool, right?
They won't turn down the street, maybe, I don't know.
Right.
Quick, set your table up so they won't.
Yeah, right, I know. Well, and I also think that I'm not necessarily good at like following rules all the time. So this has been a good experiment of, can I follow rules with the city? So thankfully I've been able to work with Alyssa at the city with Parks and Rec, and she's amazing. Like, I could not have navigated this all without her. And so it's a lot of permitting, you know, a lot of, what else? Like figuring out how to actually close the roads, like getting the road closure signs. I was like, why is this so confusing?
I feel like I would just go to a Lowe's and be like, do you have one of those big things that I can set in the road?
I know,
why
exactly.
do you not?
Exactly. Like, why is this going to cost us $4,000 to do instead? We have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So that has been just like a whole other learning thing. And I think that's why the Good Market works, because we're always open to trying new things and always wanting to make it better. So like each year as we do it, this will be our third year. It's like we need to continuously grow and create better experiences for the vendors, but then also the people who are coming. It's like, come and experience this and support local artists and just thrive in this community. So I don't know if that even answered the question.
No, it totally does. It totally does. And you know, within that you talked about like the like recent move and like a bit of like putting your guys's, you know, putting everything basically in a new location and now, you know, moving the market and all that sort of stuff. Walk me through like what has that change been like? Like walk me through that like move of Goodland.
Yeah. So maybe it's just like me always worrying that I'm going to upset someone, but I made sure to talk to all the people in the neighborhood, all the local businesses, and be like, what do you think about this move? Like, do we think this aligns with what we're trying to do as a community? And how do we feel about shutting down a street rather than just like kind of being in this parking lot that is not a main road, right? And I think everyone supports it in a way that I hoped they would, but it's really exciting to see that everyone's standing behind it and being like, this is a cool move for the neighborhood. And we see this being just like bringing a lot of eyes to what we're trying to do down here.
Yeah.
And just like kind of revitalizing things. It's like, yeah, we've had a market on Walnut Street in the parking lot for what, like 10 years maybe. Let's change it. Like, we don't have to keep doing things the way that we've always done. So really moving it is just trying to bring something new. Right.
Now, you also mentioned earlier, I think before we were recording, that you're on the Franklinton board?
Franklinton Arts District Board, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how does something like that come about? Like, was that something before you joined Goodland? Like, does that come after the evolution of being at Goodland? Like, walk me through that story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had never been to Franklinton or knew about it before Goodland. So Goodland really was like what catapulted me into this life that I have now that I never expected, like never even would have thought I'd be here. And so joining the Franklinton Arts District Board happened February of last year.
Okay.
And my friend Blake Compton, he became the vice president, and he reached out and he was like, I think that you would be perfect to be involved in this because you're here, you're present, and you're engaged with people. Because that was the other thing with Goodland is we had our big garage door, so it felt like we were like the welcoming committee all the time. Mm-hmm. And so people were constantly coming in and talking to us, and I mean, I loved that part of it, but it also felt, I was like, this isn't necessarily my job, but people would come in and be like, hey, we have this idea. What do you think about this? Can you connect me with someone else to do this? So that became like my life as well. I felt like I was the person people could come to if they had like this idea.
Oh, I love that.
I know, it honestly is amazing. And so that's like what me and Mike, honestly, he's the same way. Like people just have these ideas and they'll come to us and we're like, okay, let's talk it out. Let's make it happen. Why not? Why can't we?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that's like a way that I've found myself on the board is that I'm engaged and I'm here and excited to do things and just like devoted to seeing like, can we make something really cool happen in Franklinton? Mm-hmm. And like, let's just get some people down here and let them experience it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like this is going to be such an open-ended like question?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just like, nope, not at all. Next thing. But like, or have you always kind of found yourself as like that, like open to ideas? Like, let's just see what we can do. Like, oh my gosh, yes, tell me your thing and let's see if we can make it happen. Like, and I ask that because I'm very much like that. Like, mm-hmm. It is, dangerous mainly because I won't shut up from talking about it, but like it's dangerous for anybody to share an idea with me because I'm like, oh my God, tell me all of your thoughts about it. Tell me everything. If there's any way that I can help, let me know. And you should meet this person because they'll be able to help you link to this and blah, blah, blah. Like playing that role of like connector. And I just really, really love, and I don't know what it's called. I don't know what the terminology for it is, but like, I just love seeing ideas turn into reality. Like mm-hmm. I absolutely love it. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you're that way or always have been and never got to really like tap into that? Or is this kind of a new part of you that's flourished where you're like, oh yeah, I love talking to people about ideas. Mm-hmm. And I found myself in the position where I actually could kind of like help grow some of them. Like, was that always like a part of you, or is it a new thing? Or
yeah, I don't really know. I mean, maybe it was always something that I loved, like I always loved having parties, right? Like mm-hmm. I always loved bringing people together, and like, how else do you do that in high school, right? Like you just have parties. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, Mom. I know she's listening.
Now it comes out.
Now it comes. Yeah, she had no idea. So I think that maybe I just I'm able to now. I'm mm-hmm. put in the position where I can connect with people, and I have the opportunity to sit down and they can come to me and I can hear their ideas, and I'm like, we can make that happen. Like, let's just do that. Yeah. But I think that's also a lot of Franklinton. Mm-hmm. And so, like, this is just such a little cultural hub where anything can happen. That's how it feels. Like, it feels like everyone always has, like, these crazy ideas, or someone's working on something, and it's inspiring. Yeah. And so I think that inspiration is totally, like, just leaked into me, where I'm like, we can do whatever we want. Mm-hmm. Let's just mm-hmm. make it happen, because we're the ones that are going to make it happen. Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask a question that maybe you might be like, I don't know how I can answer that. Or you might be like, yeah, I have some thoughts. But like, we were talking beforehand. We said so much stuff before we recorded. I'm now realizing that. About like, I had a studio space here at one point, moved somewhere else, came back. And, there was a period of time where some weird changes were happening here and everybody was talking about it and all that sort of stuff. Like, where do you see like the trajectory of this area going? Because I feel like anything that is like growing and changing and evolving, there's always going to be people who are like, yes, it needs to evolve and this is awesome. Then there's also going to be people who are like, it should never change from what it currently is. And it's like, there's good and bad to both of those things, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, being so involved in the community, getting to hear a lot of the ideas that people are having, or people that want to, build stuff here or do whatever. Like, do you, like, what sort of trajectory do you see, like, an arts district like this being on? Like, mm-hmm. Is it like, there's going to be a lot more stuff welcomed in here? Or is there a deeper part of it that's like,
hey, I'll be honest, like sometimes it's we're having some hard conversations with like developers who want to come in and build skyscrapers, and they don't really care if somebody's making art here or not. Like
Right.
I don't know if there's a question in there, but I hope maybe
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was. Like
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's what you see kind of everywhere in all these different cities where the arts are thriving. It's like, okay, well, if we have a cultural hub where artists are thriving and they're creating art, people want to go there, right? And then that means that people think they can capitalize on it. So then you do have the developers being like, okay, let's throw in some apartments and let's get people in here because people want to be here. So I'll never be surprised when I see stuff like that happen. But I think that there's a way to do it where everyone is just like kind of working together almost.
Yeah.
It's like, let's acknowledge what this is and let's acknowledge the artists that are here and the work that they do. And people should want to live here. Like that makes sense. So I hope to see more things happening in Franklinton, right? Like I feel like we're just at the verge of this arts district. Like when you go to an arts district in any other cities, it's like there's just a handful of restaurants, bars, things that are keeping people down there while they're also seeing the art. So I do see a lot more development happening down here, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that as long as we're continuing to have opportunities for artists and saving space for them and encouraging them to keep producing art and doing whatever they want to do in that space, I think that it's okay. As long as we're just continuing to acknowledge them, right? And acknowledge like the work that they do.
yeah. I feel
that
like
answer?
that's yeah, and I feel like that's one of the biggest things about whether it's an area developing or evolving or an idea or a brand or a company or whatever, is like I do feel like at some point some people get too caught up in like the this or that mentality where it's like it either has to change completely and it's just like, no, we need to do this for profit or for whatever, and then you lose the core values of what made the
Right.
thing special in the first place.
Right.
And like that's always where my head goes to, where whether, you know, it's not necessarily I'm saying here, but like when I see that anywhere, again, a company or a brand or an area in an environment do that thing where they think in order to evolve, they have to completely change. And I'm like, well, then if you take away the core of what made that thing special, thinking that like, oh, well, because it's there, the people are already there, so we'll just like change it completely and do a new thing.
Right.
They'll still care. And it's like, well, no, actually, you're going to see probably a lot of fall off
Right.
of people being like, well, no, this isn't at its core. You have to understand that this thing was about community, or this thing was about art or heartfelt connections or whatever the thing is. And so while something might get bigger, yes, like of course everybody wants everything to grow and get larger and more successful and whatever. But I always, seeing things that like lose those core values is always so strange to me.
Oh, totally.
Because where my brain operates is I'm like, you establish what that like purpose and intention is for something. And then I'm like, okay, like how does every decision I make kind of relate or connect to this? Or does it change those things? Is that a needed change? Or, oh, does this actually kind of go against the whole purpose of this thing in general? And it's like looking at like the reality of the situation of, well, does this serve the community? Or does this serve the purpose or the intention behind what we were trying to do? And this is probably a way larger conversation than, you know, we probably need 3 hours to dissect what the world is doing right now. But I feel like that does happen a lot of places now where it is. And obviously there's a, you know, we could get real podcasty and talk about why everything's for profit all the time and all this sort of
Right.
stuff. But like seeing that disconnect happen so easily, but then the people who are operating that not understanding that like, well, when you disconnect and form a distrust to the community that helped build the thing, well, then they're probably going to be a little bit upset about it.
Right.
They're not looking at it from the standpoint of your Google spreadsheet where you're like, well, if we do this, we'll get profit margins up by 21%. It's like, no one cares about that. Like you're the only person who does.
Yeah.
And your group of friends are the only people who do.
Yeah.
And again, this is a much larger rant and conversation that I've found myself in here, but like, I feel like I sometimes get too attached to that idea where I'm like, I don't think it should be that hard to not completely overlook the original intent behind something. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah.
Or is it like, no, dude, when things change, they just change. Get over
No.
it. Like,
No. It totally makes sense because I think that's something that a lot of people have experienced here in Franklinton, because it is, I mean, I still consider it like a new emerging arts district, right? Like it is very popular right now, but it still is young at the same time. And so I think that a lot of things have been changing, and the people who started it, I mean, when you think about it, like if you start something new, you feel like so attached to it, right? Like you're like, I built this. This is mine. There's like a sense of ownership to it, which I think rightfully so, right? Like that's how I feel about the Good Market. I'm like, we built this. Like this is ours. It's like my baby. And so I think a lot of the people who like really started here in Franklinton, especially some of the original artists here in 400, I think they have a lot of ownership with the building, with the community, with the neighborhood. And so when things start to change, of course that is upsetting. Like, of course there's like some tension there, because it's like, well, we did this. What did you do? And so I think it's complicated, because how do we grow but still maintain this like Franklinton gritty neighborhood, right? Because that's the word we use a lot. It's like gritty.
Yeah.
Because that's what we think Franklinton is.
Right.
But like in a good way, right? It's not like scary gritty.
Yeah.
Yeah, just artist gritty.
Right.
So I think that's always something important to remember, is like, what is the root of this? Like, what is the root of this neighborhood? Because the minute that changes and is not remembered and does not follow through, then what is this place, right? Like, it's just a bunch of apartment buildings and restaurants and bars, and that's it, right? Like, there's no heart and soul to it. There's like no history.
Yeah. It's just filling space rather than the making space for things to actually happen in. And it's just, let's build some more stuff. Let's make another thing. And like, people will show up to it, right? And it's like, well, I mean, I guess, but it's also, again, you're going to lose the heart of the thing. And that, that intention that we're talking about, like that, again, that's always where I find my head going with so many scenarios that either like I'm involved in, or if I'm on the outside looking in, like when the changes were happening around here, like I had just moved, and so I was on the outside looking in. And I feel like you can oftentimes you have to see both sides, and a lot of people don't like doing that.
Right.
And even if I'm like on the side of like, no, the artist and the whatever, I'm still also like, but also you have to be open to things evolving and things changing. And then the caveat to that is, but how much are they changing? Again, does this still root back to the main purpose of a place like this existing, or a brand, whatever? I was telling you some stories, again, before we recorded. We literally should have just recorded from the moment you got here. We talked about literally everything. But the gym that I work for and go to all the time. And, you talked about that sense of ownership. I, for better or worse, over the last 4 years, have gained such a love and a sense of ownership over that gym, where when good or bad things happen to it, I feel it a little bit more than your average member, right? Because I'm like, okay, I love to brand and market this gym and do the social media and help showcase the community and all this sort of stuff. And you got to ride with the ups and downs. In some moments that's better to do, and other times you're like, why am I doing this at all? But that sense of pride and that ownership has led me to like, it's this weird protectiveness you almost get over an idea, where if somebody misunderstands something, you're like, do I really need to put the energy into like, do I really need to make you understand, or should I just let you kind of like, oh no, your understanding is your understanding. I'm just going to do my job over here and it's fine. Yeah. But also not going so deep into that attachment where ultimately at the end of the day, like, I'm not the owner. I'm not the ultimate decision maker. I can have those conversations and I can try and help influence what I think would positively be good for the brand, for the company, for the community, whatever. But at the end of the day, I do have to detach that a little bit of, okay, I did what I could, but ultimately the decision is not mine. And I'm not saying any of that in like a negative way, like, oh my God, it's all terrible. But like that balance of, again, like, well, what someone thinks is right and what I think is right might be two different things. But again, as long as we're not losing that core value of what both of those opinions might be coming from, it's like, okay, the process in which we want to do this might be a little bit different, but are we still doing it for this good reason? But at the same time, I also feel like a lot of that gets super lost because, I don't know, there's also this weird balance of like heartfelt ownership and actual ownership kind of being at odds a lot of the time. And even when I asked that earlier question of like, where do you see the trajectory of a place like this going? Like such a large question, but it's also, I feel like I think about that with almost everything now, because things are kind of weird in the world. And there's some days where I'm like, will any of this matter? Because everything's just getting kind of like torn down and everything's just being turned into some like big business thing. And at the same time, I'm like, no, it matters now more than ever, because creating communities and strong bonds and art and all this sort of stuff is kind of this is going to sound way deeper than what it really is, but it's like, it's almost like the way to rebel now is like by doubling down on a real purpose behind something.
Yeah.
And being like, no, like I get that the easier answer is just do this, but almost the right or honorable answer is stick to the plan. Stick to the reason behind why we did this. And that was a whole ramble that I don't even know where it was going at that point.
I have some points.
Vote for me for president. That's where we're going.
And me for vice president.
Yes, of course. We're running now. That's it. It's official. It's been recorded on a podcast, and
it's real.
We are officially running. So we'll see what happens. But did any of that make sense? Like I know I'm all over the place with that explanation.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, a couple of things. So I think because I've felt that where you get like a job, right? So in the past, I've worked at bars and restaurants, and I worked at a place where I helped open it. And so I felt like that sense of ownership, but it's because I was so passionate about it. And I think that's something about me. It's like, if I'm going to do something, then I'm going to have a lot of passion behind it, and I'm going to see it through and put everything into it that I have. So it's like when you think about a work-life balance, I'm like, but what if it was just one life, Like,
yeah, I'm the same way.
What if it's just, there's like a balance, but it's like all together. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I see it. Like anywhere I've worked, it's like I just care so much. Most places, right? Maybe not every single one, but there was a time when I worked at a restaurant, and I was just like, I cared so much, and I felt like I worked so much, like just sure, of course, like clocking in, but like I just literally cared. And then when I would try to like have some opinions, it's like, who are you to make these opinions, or like, who are you to say these things? And then I was like, you know what, this place is driving me kind of crazy, because I care so much and I can't do anything to help it when no one cares what I have to say. So I'm just going to leave. Fuck it. Like, that's how I felt. And so I understand that, where it's like, you're not an owner, but you just like have so much passion. And maybe that's what it is. We're just like passionate people.
Yeah.
So we are just like, we are in there, we get it. We want to be involved.
Yeah.
Even though we don't own it. Right.
Right. Do you ever have the battle of like wishing there was like kind of a switch where you could turn that passion off?
Yeah, probably.
Because this goes back to like the ideas thing that I was talking about earlier. It's like, when someone tells me a goal or idea of theirs, I'm like, okay, I can't do it for you, but like, oh my God, let me do anything to encourage you to do that. And again, I'll connect you to this person if that would maybe help. And there's been so many times over the years where it's like, I want their goal for them more than they might want it. And I don't mean that in a they suck, they're lazy way. I mean it in that passion of mine to connect with people, to help people, to whatever. Just immediately takes over, where I'm like, oh my God, that's so exciting. Yes, let's do it. And so I think that that's 100% accurate of what you were saying, of a lot of it comes from that passion place, where it's kind of dangerous for me to get connected to anything. And I mean dangerous ultimately for me, because I'm like, oh, I'm probably going to give a piece of myself to this. And I don't necessarily know if I should. And I probably care a little bit too much. And, even going back to the thing of those conversations where you do present those ideas or those thoughts or those opinions from a place of caring or a place of passion. And when they are met with like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, why are you sharing this opinion? Why are you telling me? We don't need to do that because the bottom line is this. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're not thinking from a passionate place. And that's a hard line to navigate. Like, do you have that part of you where you're like, I would love to just stop sometimes, or you're like, nope, who cares? It's me, and let me friggin' love everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's all about like, I love to care about everything, right? But I mean, maybe not everything, whatever.
Yeah.
I like to care about these things, and I love talking to passionate people, and I love hearing the crazy ideas. And to me, it really feels like we can make anything happen. So I don't know if I want to turn it off. I think that I have days where I just like kind of hang out at home and don't think about things.
Yeah.
And it's that balance that helps me. So, I mean, I'm very familiar with burnout. And so I think that runs with like doing your job, but also like all these side passions that you have, like just wanting to make things happen with people. I think that adds to the burnout. So, but that, I discovered burnout for like the first time probably like 2 years ago.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like didn't know. I was like, did I have burnout in high school? I have no idea.
Right.
Like even in college, no idea. It was like, but now I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I need to like go lay in bed for 3 days because I don't know if I can mentally handle things.
And does that just come from a place of like, ultimately I was just doing too much, or was it like I was giving too much of myself in these ways to these things?
Yeah.
That I had to kind of like restructure.
I think it was both because this is something that like I know I talk to a lot of vendors about where we really like operate in these seasons here as small businesses where it's like wintertime in like early spring, nothing's really happening, right? But like come into April through November, it's like go time. It's like we're going to be outside. We're going to take all of our stuff in a tent and a table and set up and talk to people for 5 hours and try to sell things. Like it's just literally exhausting, especially like maybe it's 95 degrees outside and you're just trying to exist at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think it's both. I think it's like physically for a lot of small businesses in Columbus. I bet it's everywhere, honestly. It's just those are the conversations I have. It's like it's just easy to get burnt out because you just try and hustle so hard for like 8 months. And then you just have to rest, right? Like you have to take the time to rest or you're just burnt out. And then where do you go from there? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Something I am interested in. We're gonna jump in a time machine and we're gonna go way back. Where does the interest in photography originally come from? Because you said that it's like what you went to school for and everything, right? So did you grow up here, like in Columbus and everything, or okay?
Yeah, I grew up in Worthington.
Okay.
And after high school, I was like, okay, I don't like school. Like, I do not want to go to college right now. So I moved to California. I have family in the Bay Area. So they were like, why don't you just come out here and let's just see what happens. And so I moved out there and I was like, it's kind of hard to make friends at 18 years old. And like, so I just went to community college for a little bit. And out there, their system is just so much better where it's like actually accepted to go to community college, where I feel like Columbus really is like getting better at that. But in 2012, it was not. It was like, it felt like Columbus State was not an option. So out there, I was going to school. I thought I wanted to be, what did I want to be? I wanted to be a teacher, I think. And I was like, yeah, this could be cool. I feel like I like can connect with people and I could be a good teacher. And then I transferred to OSU after 3 years, came home, and I was an education major. And I remember the first day of classes, they were like, here at OSU, we train the best of the best teachers. And I was like, oh no, I don't think that's me. That's not like what I didn't want to be like the best of the best. I just wanted to be like a cool teacher.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I shouldn't do this. Like if I don't want to like be the best at something, especially in a situation like this, like our teachers should be amazing and love what they do.
Yeah.
Which hopefully they are, right?
Right.
And so I was like, I shouldn't do this. So I had a friend who was a photographer and I just like reached out to her and I was like, I'm thinking about like being a photographer. Like I've always liked photography and I had a camera, I would take pictures, but it was like pictures of flowers and animals and just like us going on adventures, stuff like that. And so she really pushed me. She was like, I think you should do it. She's like, this can be a real job. I know no one tells you that, but you can make something out of this. And so I changed my major at OSU, went into the art department, and that like just changed my life, honestly. I was like, okay, I like school kind of now because I love doing these studio classes and it just having that balance, right? Like being able to go to the studio classes, being able to take photography seriously and really learn some interesting things, but then also like, sure, I'll go to an English class. Okay. Sure, I'll like go to my stats class because I know that I get to have that output in the other classes.
Yeah.
Like the balance. So that's like the other thing that I always say. It's like, you don't know these things exist. You don't know you can go and work this job, right? Like especially what I'm doing now. I had no idea that you could go work for a small business and make up a job, right?
Yeah.
But even photography, like people just don't know these things. So I think just, I don't know, exploring and having conversations and just being open about that you can do anything. Anything is a job. You just have to find it. You have to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's how I got into photography, at least.
And do you feel like you, and I also understand I'm asking this from a standpoint of like, I don't know, dude, I was 18. I probably wasn't thinking about it that deeply. Because like, I think back to that all the time where I'm like, I somehow made good decisions for my life, not really consciously making them at that time. I just so happened to do it. But like, even that mindset of let's just try things and kind of let's just actually follow a passion and oh, cool. Like obviously later in life you learned like, oh, I can kind of create a job out of this interest I have. But like, was any of that mindset like ingrained in you like growing up, or were you surrounded by anything like that, or were you like encouraged to make art and all that sort of stuff, or was that just something that like, nope, I became an adult, found out the world was weird, and I tried things like
it may be a little bit of both. I don't know, because growing up, I mean, I don't like remember, this sounds so like traumatizing. I don't like remember a ton of things. So it's like, I remember like going to classes like at the rec center and my mom taking me there and us doing like, but that feels like normal kid things. Like you take your kids to the rec center and you drop them off and they do some classes, right?
Right.
So I remember that kind of stuff. But then like as I got older, I wasn't super involved in arts. I wasn't involved in like the art classes in high school, and then graduating high school, maybe like when I moved out to California, we started just like being a little more like hippie and a little more like, let's go to the park and paint, things like that.
Okay.
Which, I mean, maybe that's like where I was like, okay, this is art, you know? I like being around like these people who are creative and open thinkers but no, I don't know if I was like always involved in the arts like I am now.
Yeah.
Was that the question? I don't even know.
Well, it was more so like where that kind of state of mind came from.
Okay.
Of like, oh yeah, I just want to try these things. Like,
right. Yeah. And I think that's important to be now. It's like, as long as you're open to trying things and open to exploring and doing something new, I think that's where anything can happen, right? That's where like the opportunities present themselves, because how else would you find them?
And that is literally, it's something I feel like I talk about too much at this point, but like I always talk so much about just anything that seems interesting, just try it. Just try it,
totally.
Just do it. Like, because I have tried to live my life in that way where I'm like, if something seems interesting to me, I'm just going to give it a shot, because if it isn't as cool as I thought it was, or it doesn't work out, I'm either going to be like, how do I make it work? And that shows me I really want it. Or I'm going to be like, fuck that. I don't want to do that again. Yeah. Then it's like, okay, cool. You checked it off your list and you're not thinking about it anymore. And now I have an answer of, oh, I didn't actually want to do that. It just sounded cool. And like, I feel like even in like a dangerous way, I keep saying dangerous. I was just going
to say that.
I apparently live a very dangerous lifestyle. Maybe it's because it's tax season and I'm like, just don't know how we're paying those.
Oh God.
But it's like, I feel like it's always been that slippery slope of like almost wanting to live life so freely so often, where it's just like, cool, here's a new thing that I want to try. I'm going to try it, and it's either going to be added to my list or again, it's going to fall off. And that was just an idea, back to the ideas thing where it's like, yep, it is so difficult to not get really, really excited when someone tells me they want to try a thing or do a thing, because I'm always thinking in that way where I'm just like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Like, and I've gotten so big on like personal fulfillment of, yes, we have to have jobs and we have to do these things and pay bills and all this sort of stuff, but also what is just fun to do?
Yeah.
What are just things you like to do when you're not, battling that burnout, or when you're not doing the thing that is your career or is your job? What are those extra kind of things you can put on a joy list to figure out like, okay, like what are things I want to do for me, and whether those turn into other careers and other jobs, like they can obviously take that route.
Yeah.
But even back in like high school, like I was talking about the conscious and unconscious decisions, like when I graduated, I knew that like more school was not for me. I was like, I want to like just make and create and entertain for a living, but I don't know what that looks like at all. Like I do a lot of filmmaking work and branding work and stuff now, but like I wasn't sitting at 18 like I'm going to go do video production.
No.
Like I was just like, I can't go to more school. I really, really just want to make things, but I'm not even sure what that is yet. I guess I'll get a regular job to hopefully support all these hobbies I'm going to start collecting. Mm-hmm. And that's even why I asked that question of like, you know, did you think that was kind of your state of mind at that point in time or where that came from? Because I almost can't trace mine, you know, because I grew up in a super small town in Ohio. Mm-hmm. It's a bubble. You know, you don't really do things.
Right.
You just kind of exist, and then you get a job around the area, and then you hang out there and you pick a football team to love forever. And that's the gist. Yeah. And I'm like, what if we created art for a living? And everyone's like, you could, I guess, sure. Like, that's whatever. Like, and thankfully having the support of, you know, people who are like, I guess you don't have to go to school. We're not going to force you into school. So that trajectory of, you know, even just where those things unlock for people is always fascinating to me. Totally. Of, you know, was it a thing that was always around? Was it something we unlock later? And like, even where you find yourself now, like, now that so many more doors have been opened of working with Goodland and now doing the market and being, you know, working with the Franklinton Arts District and all that sort of stuff. Are there more things kind of on, you know, the life list of Aly that you're like looking of like, I would love to start a brand like this one day, or I would love to get more involved in building communities in this way, or like, what does that kind of like open-ended journey look like for you now? Are there any of those specifics where you're like, man, I want to build towards this, I want to do this, like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex question again. It's hard because I never expected to be where I am. So when I try to imagine like, okay, what am I going to do in 5 years, right? Like, it feels like anything could happen, and I'm very open to that. I think working with artists right now, that is something that like, okay, if I am trying to think of something that like I could see myself doing more of this, I think it's working with artists. I think it's like helping them continue to have the things they need in order to be sustaining, right? Like, whether it's finding funding or finding grants or just finding like the opportunities to continue to do what they love. I think that is something that I would love to continue to work on. This is just like in the talks, but me and another board member and friend, Andrew Lumberg, we would love to start working on a program with the Franklinton Arts District that kind of helps artists with the skills and tools that they might not necessarily have, where it's like, maybe it's more business, maybe it's more social media, it's more marketing. It's like, I think that would be so helpful for them to have. Mm-hmm. And it would just be a great addition to what this neighborhood has. It's like, how can they be expected to make this amazing art, but then also like go out there and sell yourself too? It's like, and then do your taxes also. It's like, that's a lot. It's a lot to do. Yeah. So like, can we help support them? Can we help, like, just help them do what they do, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something that I think I could see myself doing more of.
I love that.
Yeah. And really, that's a lot of like the passion, where it's like you meet someone and they're like, oh, I have this idea. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. Like, just being able, like, that needs to be a job. That needs to be my job, actually. Like, yes. Like, just the professional doer of things, professional making shit happen person. That's what it is.
Let's just start, while we're running for president and vice president, let's also just form that as a new job title. Yeah. Because I feel like I would fall directly into that. I'm like, yep, just I make things. I just do stuff.
I just do stuff.
And that stuff that I do last week might look different next week. Like, it's, you know, it's not that I'm sporadically changing my life all the time, but it's that I'm actively adding new things to it all the time. And I feel like, I don't know, is it crazy to say that I feel like that's kind of what life should be?
No.
It's like adding new experiences all the time, adding new ways of finding joy and creating and learning and connecting with people. Yeah. Like, so again, even you explaining, I would love to help form some program that helps securely build that bridge of how does an artist really market themselves in today's world. Like, everywhere needs more of that.
Yes.
because everything is so, growing so fast paced and ever changing, and it can be annoying. It can absolutely bring, a lot of burnout can come from, how am I showing up on social media for my creations
Yes.
this week? Like, that in itself is such a daunting task sometimes that is often annoying to balance for anybody.
Right.
And some people are like, I don't care, I'm just going to do my thing. And doing their thing without overly marketing themselves, it can totally work.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, someone's like, oh man, if I could just reach some more eyes. And it's like, yeah, if you did just kind of develop out your quote unquote personal brand or your company a little bit more, it actually would help build that foundation. But now that everybody has to be the creator, the owner, the marketing manager, the whole C-suite, all this sort of stuff, I feel like it's simultaneously like, oh my gosh, look at all this opportunity to grow, but at the same time, look at all these things I have to do.
Right. Yeah, I think that just supporting these endeavors for artists, like, if that's something that we can do, we should do it, right? Like, we should be supporting these small businesses, even supporting the nonprofits, people who are like helping people make things happen in a small way, right? Like, it doesn't need to be like doesn't need to have the same impact as like a Target has, right? We're not trying to be Target. We're not trying to be Walmart. We're trying to be in like our local economies and strengthen those. So I think just supporting from like the ground up is a good way to think about things. And I hope people remember that. Like, don't get so caught up in life. Like, think about back to what we were talking about. Like, think about like the core, think about like the values that we started with. It's like, support these local places, support the small businesses, because that's what we're surrounded by.
Do you think that stuff is, and I'm going to contradict myself because earlier I said things are not only always just this or that, black or white. It's usually somewhere in the middle. But like in general, like, do you think doing stuff like that is easier than it's ever been or more difficult than it's ever been?
Oh.
And I know it's such a large question. We are about to run the country, so we do have to get prepared for these.
We got to figure this out.
But I asked that from the place of, on one hand, everybody can see everything. Anything that we do, we have a connection to everybody online, everywhere, and there's algorithms, all sort of stuff that you got to fight.
Yeah.
But like, the ability to instantly create, and tomorrow I could make an Instagram page that looks well branded and have photos and all sort of stuff, and I could look like I own a business that I don't even own.
Yeah, true.
But I could get it started by kind of pretending that I have it, right? And then seeing what interest that gauges. That's both cool and also a little bit scary. And then at the same time, really looking at like the physical level of what does it take for communities to help strengthen that community, to open new cool spaces, to open a physical location of a local business and hope a community supports it, and that it builds itself and all this sort of stuff. Like, I feel like simultaneously there's more opportunity to make those things successful, but because there's more opportunity, everybody's doing it, and there's also a faster pace in which you have to do it. And the moment you don't turn, I would love to go to a building and want to open up some cool physical place, but also if it's not working and I can barely pay rent, the owner of that building does not care how much of my heart is in that brand or not.
Right.
Where do you feel like that lands? Do you feel like it's probably just a mixture of both? Or is it like, it is hard, but you got to put the work in, or like, actually it's so much easier than it's ever been and you just got to do it? Like,
yeah, I mean, it probably is a little bit of both, right? But like, I think that it is really hard. I think it is putting the work in. And that's what I see with us. I see like that we've put a lot of work in for the past 5 years. I know Goodland's been longer, but like the past 5 years have been like a lot of hard work. And that is what has led up to this and allowed us to get into the position where we're going to open the brick and mortar. So it's like we have spent a lot of time refining the brand, refining our customer base, right? And figuring out like who aligns with us, but then also making connections. And that's like how this is all possible, is making connections with people in the neighborhood who can help us make these things happen. So I think that's both for small businesses and for artists. It's like, it is hard work. Like, anyone that says it's not hard work is probably lying. Or good for them, I guess. That's the other thing.
Or they've been handed $1 million.
Yeah, or I'm so happy for you. Yeah, and can I have some?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm not mad at you. I actually want to be your best friend. I have an idea I need to talk to you about, by the way.
Yeah, we're running for office and we need you to support us.
Yeah. And that's how we start to sell out.
Yes, right,
Yes,
right.
we need your support, please. I'll
Right.
say whatever you want me to.
Yeah,
Give me
sure.
money.
Give us money, yeah. Yeah, so I think it's all hard. I think it's all hard, and it's a lot of work, but I think, seriously, I think it's all possible. I think it's like, if you are passionate about something, then you can make it happen. It's like, okay, do you need the funding? Okay, then let's figure out how to get the funding, right? Like, let's connect you with someone that can help this happen. So I think it's hard, but I think anything's worth it, right? If you're passionate about it and you can put your heart into it, then I think it's worth it.
I have a very specific question based
Okay.
off of that. In your journey through all of this stuff, what has been like your favorite unlock that you've discovered through those hard processes when it comes to how do we find funding for this thing, or how do I connect these dots to this thing? Like, has there been one thing that stuck out to you that you were like, you know, and maybe it can be like, oh, well, a lesson I learned was this, and it was wild because I didn't think that I would do that. Or just like an actual logistical process in general of like, I had no idea how to put together a market, but learning
Right.
this process, and this is what kind of was the unlock for me. Like, does anything come to mind? And even for you personally, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be for Goodland or anything like that. Like, even maybe if it's a path of self-discovery, like something you figured out about yourself. Like, does anything prominently come to mind when I ask that?
I mean, I don't know if it's like an exact example right now. Like, I'm like not on an interview and I'm like, yeah, that this one time I solved this problem with this.
This is how I helped a customer with a blah, blah, blah.
But I think that something I think about a lot is that there's like not this black and white playbook of how things are going to go. And so I think especially with small businesses, you just have to be like ready for anything and just be open to it. And I keep saying that, just like being open to things. But I think that's something that I've learned through working with Goodland, doing the Good Market, but then also I carry it in with myself, like out of work, right, if that happens. So I'm like, if you just are open to things and don't think that you have to be like following this playbook of life, right? Like, things may not always happen the way you think they're going to, and that's okay. They're not always going to look the way you think they're going to, and that's okay. So I think it's just like rolling with the punches maybe, and maybe they're not punches, they're like soft little nudges, and that's okay. But just being open to it. And so maybe that's the lesson.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Like, and because, yeah, I think it is important to, that's probably the hardest lesson we all learn is that, oh, things aren't always going to look the way that we really, really pictured them looking.
Right.
Because we've always got this picture perfect idea of like,
course.
this is going to happen and it might be hard, but this is going to be the result. And then when the result is anything slightly different, I think it's vastly important to not let that feel like a defeat.
Right.
It's like, well, hey, I still got the thing. I still accomplished the goal. Like, I've become huge about that. And maybe this is just a caveat so I don't feel bad about not accomplishing something. But
Yeah.
like, I really do try and put a positive spin on as much as I possibly can of not like moving my goalpost. Not like saying, well, I want to achieve this thing. And then when I achieve a version of it, if it wasn't perfect, I'm then saying I failed.
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
well-
I do that.
Do you feel like you mean you go to that I failed if it wasn't perfect, or the hey, I did it still?
No, I think probably I failed if it wasn't perfect. Like,
Really? Okay.
Well, also like my imposter syndrome is insane. Like, I feel like I have it the worst I've ever seen it, where I'm like, anything I do is constantly like not good enough. But I acknowledge like, yeah, we do a lot of really cool things, but I'm constantly like, how do we make it better? You know, just constantly. Like, I never stop and be like, wow, that was amazing. That was so great. I don't like take the time to acknowledge what we did.
Yeah.
I'm immediately like, okay, next month we got to do this, or like, this was a shit show. How do we do this better? And so I think it's exhausting, and I don't know how people don't have imposter syndrome. I'm like, I need to be you. So then I'm not holding myself back with just like being scared, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like I like preach both ways. I'm like, yeah, go with the flow and you can do this, and things will only happen if you do it. But also like imposter syndrome is so real.
Yeah, well, it's a classic case of like, what is it? Do as I say, not as I do,
Yeah,
sort of thing. Of like, we're really good at
Yes.
giving other people the advice of like, no, do this. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, sometimes that advice comes from the place of we know we're not doing that, and we don't want to see someone else fall in that same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Because like even on the imposter syndrome note, like I feel like I used to actually battle with that a lot heavier than I do now. Where I truthfully have, I feel like gained a pretty good amount of confidence in myself and my skills and what I am good and bad at. to where I can openly acknowledge like, oh, I would suck at that. There's no
Yeah.
way I'm not your guy for that thing, right? But I am really your guy for these things, and I'm confidently, yes, I do belong there. I should be able to do that. But that's also not a day-to-day. I'm not walking around every single day like, everything's perfect. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, maybe today I'm not good at this. So what am I doing? How did I ever come up with an idea before?
Yeah.
And then battling that burnout and everything. But even back to like the moving of goalposts or the slowing down to really take in an accomplishment, like I feel like that in itself takes a bunch of work to develop that skill. Like I think I do that,
Yeah.
but I don't probably do it enough necessarily. Like that is one of those things what I would always tell someone to do that, and then
Right.
I'm like, so what am I doing next month to make sure this next thing is the most successful and blah blah blah. But like I was saying, like I also have gotten a pretty decent balance, I feel like, on how can I just positively look at this thing and see it for what it is, and also identify like, well, what win have I gotten out of that? Like, it still brought some sort of value.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of this comes from, there's this guy named Ben Nempton. And I don't know if you ever watched the MTV show Buried Life.
Oh, maybe.
So it's basically, it's a big like bucket list show where it's like this
Okay.
group of dudes got together and they were like, we have this big bucket list of things we want to accomplish in our lives.
Oh.
So they started documenting it and making a show out of it where they would travel around, and while they were trying to cross off these like fun things on their bucket list, they would also find somebody in the town that they're in and be like, what's something you want to achieve or accomplish?
Oh.
How can we help you do that?
I
and
love
cross it
that.
off your bucket list. And a lot of Ben's like teachings or whatever that he talks about from those experiences are learning to re-look at some of our goals and eliminate that idea of perfectionism of like, the goal doesn't happen if it didn't happen like this. And it's like, well, what version did it happen in? And like one of their biggest stories is like, they wrote down on their bucket list, do a sketch with Will Ferrell. And so they were like, all right, how are we going to do a comedy sketch with Will Ferrell? Like I don't know. And basically, to make it short, they were at some sports game, sports where they throw the ball around.
Yeah, I heard of that.
Someone scores more points, I think.
I
and
heard
then
about
someone
sports.
scores less.
Yep.
There's a ball involved. Or
We
something.
watched at our house. Don't worry. I've
Yeah,
seen it.
it's
Yeah.
like- but like they were at whatever game, and he was there, and so they were like, oh my god, like let's try and meet him. So they're trying to meet him, and they're like, how can we film a sketch? Like we have our video crew with us, like we need to, or let's just try and film it with a phone, like whatever. And they meet him, and they're like, we can't film a sketch with him right now. He's like hanging out at this ball game. Like we can't do this. And so what they did is like, well, we have to capture this moment. Like this is our moment to do this. So what they did, and it's so stupid, but like the point is, like what they did was they got a piece of paper and had him draw half of a sketch, and they drew the other half of the sketch, and together made a sketch with
Wow.
Will Ferrell.
Wow.
And while that's so stupid as a story, ultimately they were like, we crossed it off the list because now it's also taken this new shape of kind of an even more fun story than the perfect version they had in their minds of like, yes, it would have been dope if they got to film a whole comedy sketch with him. But now they have this weird alternate story of, we met him at a sports game and we drew this shitty little sketch with him, and that's how we checked it off our bucket list.
Yeah.
And like, again, such a dumb story, but like what I've taken so much of that, or what I've taken from that is, okay, like how can I make sure I'm not like only striving for the picture perfect version of these goals? And like, yes, I want that. I'm going to do the work for that.
Right.
But if how that goal is accomplished or how it ultimately lands looks a little bit, quote unquote, lesser than,
Sure.
it doesn't mean that it's not valuable, right? I still did the thing. I still accomplished the thing. And it kind of, in a way, is like made things more fun because it's like learning to just accept different versions of things. Like, yes, there's caveats to everything of like, well, no, a business is only going to be successful if you launch the business. You can't just make the fake Instagram page and be like, I've
Right.
got a business, haha. Like,
Right.
no, there's a certain caveats. But it's, learning and hearing things like that has honestly shaped a lot of my perspective on like, let me just accept this thing for what it is. Like this show, for example, like obviously I want this show to be as big as it can be,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to like actively beat myself up or say it's a failure just because it doesn't get 100,000 listens every episode. You know what I mean? For me, I'm like the core thing that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
At the core of me doing this show, it's because one, everybody, I feel like you know this by now, I love talking, probably too much, right? So thank goodness podcasts were created so I could just sit here and talk nonstop. But I also really, truly, I love meeting people. And I love getting to have uninterrupted conversations in getting to know somebody and getting to know their story and their interests and their dislikes and all this sort of stuff. And so for me, at the end of the day, I have gotten to meet and form friendships with so many rad people just because I was like, oh, podcasting's a thing. Sounds like something I could do. And yes, I want to brand it well. I want it to look cool and sound cool. And I want people to care about it and listen to these episodes. But at the end of the day, I'm like, my ultimate win is this is a cheat code to make friends.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a good
like,
cheat code.
I get to meet people and get to find out their biggest fears and their biggest goals all at once. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so much fun. And then we run for president and we're great.
Yeah.
But like, again, because like some people will bring that up in conversation sometimes where they're like, well, you know, how's the podcast doing? Or who's the biggest guest you've gotten on? And I'm like, I don't have an answer because I don't like stew over the numbers for these episodes. You know what I mean? Like there's only been like 1 or 2 people over the 5 years of me doing this who have like checked in with me and been like, how'd my episode do? How many downloads did it get? And I'm like, I don't know.
Don't know.
And they're like, oh, you didn't look? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I don't want them to be 0.
Sure.
Like, I want people to know about this show.
Yeah.
But we had a fun conversation, and I get to share it with people on the internet that I don't even know. That in itself is cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because when I do go and look at the numbers every once in a while, and, you know, I'll see, like, the spike when an episode drops, and then if I don't drop an episode for a couple weeks, I'll still see, like, X amount of people listening every day, and I'm like, that's actually insane to me. That there are whatever amount of people, whether it's 10, whether it's 100, finding this podcast and listening to an episode. And I don't know who that is. I didn't directly promote it to them. You know what I mean? And so I know I'm on some, you know, soapbox here, but like, again, the point just kind of being accepting a thing for what it is and just being like, yep, I got to experience that.
Yeah. No, I think that is interesting because it's like maybe it's not that you're like it's not like you're not expecting these big results, you know, but you're kind of finding other ways to I don't know if it's measure success or what it is, but you're like, okay, well, I got to meet these people and this is really cool. And even if it doesn't get 1 million views or 1 million listens, like I can take something out of it. And maybe that's like the cheat code. Maybe it's like, as long as you can find something to take from it and not put so much pressure on yourself for like this big reveal, you know, or this big expectation, maybe that's like the cheat code to not letting yourself down.
Right.
Or like getting in your head too much. It's like just find these little things, you know, that you can like attainably measure. Not just like you fail or you succeed. It's like, is there something in between that we can kind of like love? Yeah.
Because it's like the win probably isn't going to look exactly how we pictured it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it wasn't worth anything. It doesn't mean that it's automatically a loss just because this episode doesn't get 1 million downloads.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, shouldn't have done that. What a waste of a conversation.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's so cool. I got to meet Aly. We got to talk about all these things, ramble about a bunch of stuff. And that was just so much fun. Cool. Amazing. Like, it doesn't have to be this, like, if it doesn't turn into this. And again, the core values thing. Like, the intention of doing this or the intention of me creating or doing anything. Like, yes, I want them to be successful. But the real intention at the end of the day is, did I enjoy doing it?
Yeah.
Did I have fun? Did it enrich my life in some way?
Right.
Did I feel better, or did I get to create or artistically express myself or connect with another person and help them do the same? Like those sort of things, like maybe explaining it that way, it makes it sound so deep and so whatever, but it's like, that's just the reality of it.
Right.
For me.
The reality. There
Yes,
we go.
yes,
Yeah.
it's like the
and it's
reality.
okay to be deep, right? It's reality.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, if that's how we think about things, then like,
Yeah.
okay. And so exactly like you were saying, it's like, yeah, it doesn't have to look, it's gonna look a certain way in our minds, but okay, cool. That cheat code is, how do I accept it as it is? How do I accept the win as it is? And that doesn't mean we have to be, content with not growing or not succeeding. It's not just like, oh, well, it didn't really work, but I guess I should just be happy about it, right? It's like, no, you can still want more.
Yeah.
It is totally fine to want to evolve and change and grow. Absolutely. But like what we keep saying is you can simultaneously have both of those things.
Right.
And now I'm sitting on a podcast saying all that, but because it took me a really long time to figure any of that out.
Yeah. I know, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how did you even get better at that, right? Like, how did you fight this? But maybe the answer is time also, right?
Right. And I'm sure for some people, it's a quicker, like, oh yeah, cool, I just figured this out and I became confident and now I know the thing. And it's like, for me, it's like I've been working in the, freelance creative world, whatever, business world, whatever you want to call it, for a decade. And a lot of that decade was that imposter syndrome. It was a lot of that, like having hints of confidence, but not feeling like I was allowed to be confident.
Yeah.
Right. Where like I knew I was good at something, but I didn't think I could say that.
God, I hate that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Where I'm like, I know I'm good at this thing, but why do I feel like a fraud if I say I am?
A straight up fraud.
And that's not because it's that weird thing of like, I believe I'm good, but what if someone else doesn't? And that's what makes me fake. And so like I would hide that for a super long time, where I'm like, I know I'm good at photography and I'm good at video and I'm good at these things that I like really put myself into and I enjoy doing them. But, it also depends on the environment you're in, the people you're around, all that sort of stuff. And like, I feel like I was kind of constantly around, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody, but like I was kind of constantly around this like, don't take anything seriously mentality. Like if you take it too seriously, you're stupid. Like don't be confident because then you're an asshole. Like, and sure, fine line between cockiness and confidence. We all know that.
Yep.
But that was the thing. So it was like always just like putting all of so much of who I am in this shell of like, I'm okay at the thing, I guess.
That's exactly how I am.
And it's hard, and it took so much time. And I've shared this a lot on the show, but like, I would say in the last probably 3 or 4 years is when I really made that unlock. And like, gradually chiseled away at that over the years. But realistically, like when I really feel like I put it down and was like, okay, cool. No, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. I don't care if this thing I do, if someone thinks it's cringy or stupid, or if someone doesn't know why I made this business decision because they would have made it differently. It's like, I don't care. Yeah. Because I'm going to learn whether that was right or wrong. And then it's up to me to figure out my reaction to that.
Yeah. Do you feel like that was like a lot of self-work, or do you feel like it was like a lot of the people around you? Do you feel like that had like a play in it?
So I actually think like kind of what I was saying, like I think almost from a negative standpoint, I think it was the people around me for a little bit. Yeah. Because it was this like, if you're confident, you're kind of an asshole, and like don't take your thing too seriously. And not even like intentionally by a lot of these people. It's just their lack of confidence, their imposter syndrome that they're battling with is going to exude into whoever's around them. Yeah. So then you're like, oh, well, they're not confident. I can't say I'm happy about this thing because they're not happy about their thing, and that makes me feel weird.
Totally.
So I shouldn't say anything.
What is wrong with us? Were we hanging around the same people?
Maybe we have all the same friends and we didn't know it. But like, I think so from a negative standpoint, I think that was it a little bit. Because I also can kind of equate the timelines to when I started living on my own and finally got my own place by myself with no roommates. Nice. I feel like I was fully in my own environment at all times. And that doesn't mean every day I was doing cartwheels and dancing and skipping. There was a lot of those times where I'm like, I'm so fucking alone. Sure. But I think that true space and time for that then self-discovery that you also mentioned, really being able to dive into that, really being able to dive into who am I? What do I actually care about? Let's let these things come to prominence. Because I remember like I would have such a weird lack of confidence, and I'm sure there's another word for it, but when I had roommates, I wouldn't post certain things I wanted to post on social media because if I did and they mentioned it to me, I would feel weird and embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like if I shared
For no reason.
For no reason. If I would share a project that I was super stoked on, and if they then made a joke about it, and I saw you share that thing and tag the thing, haha. Like, and they don't mean ill will by that, but it's just the nature of people just shit talk each other all the time for some reason, which I've never really gotten into. But that natural thing, that would then, what that did to me was make me go back in my shell, because I'm like, oh, was it stupid that I posted that? Shit, I mean, I don't think it is, but like they're kind of making fun of me for it. Now I feel weird about that thing.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of like, again, pushed me down in that shell even more. And so I think it was a mix of like my environment changing to be just my own environment. And then also really trying to be purposeful in that self-discovery.
Yeah.
Like really digging into who am I? What do I want to do? We talked about the gym earlier. Like I do equate a lot of my self-confidence raising from going to the gym.
Sure.
And that's not because, oh, bro, I got shredded. Like it's...
That's exactly how I see you.
Yeah, of course. That's the whole time this conversation, you're like, you gym bro, stop talking on your podcast.
Yeah, like I heard you mention this in another podcast that you go to the gym.
Yeah, so I knew who I was sitting down with today. But like obviously, yes, making good physical changes for our body make us feel better.
Yes.
But the mental benefit of just taking care of yourself physically, like everybody talks about it, everybody hears it. They're like, yeah, I get it, working out, blah, 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 understand. But like, I really do equate a lot of my unlock coming from going to the gym a couple times a week and physically challenging myself and seeing myself overcome those challenges and seeing myself grow in these ways and do a really hard workout or something and being like, wow, like that's just also naturally, I think, doing something to my body that makes my brain feel a certain way. Like,
yeah.
I ran today, my brain feels better.
Yeah.
Like that's just naturally what happens. And somebody who's smarter than me can explain that better. But like, I do think it all kind of aligned at the same time with that, right? Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that all of a sudden one day a switch flipped and then I was like, cool, I'm not sad anymore. And it was like, wow, I'm making this progress, but also having these terrible depressive days where I know I'm feeling better, I know I'm making progress, but still battling with that. Well, depression's a real thing and you're just sad today. So that's just it. But also another layer is learning how to combat that sadness. Learning that is chemically going to just exist sometimes.
Yeah.
Or a bad thing's going to happen and you're just going to feel bad about it. But also in that self-discovery of being intentional with it, figuring out what are the things I can do to combat this.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's going to make it go away. Doesn't mean that if I do 5 push-ups, my depression stops. Like, no. But like understanding that like if I can begin to collect more of these things, and so much of what we talked about throughout this conversation of what things bring me joy, what things make me feel fulfilled, whether that's creating art, helping somebody with business stuff, doing a cool career thing, or going to the gym, or just, whatever. How can I make sure I'm making enough space for those things as actively as possible?
Right.
And I don't know if any of that made sense, but like, back to your question, like it was a mixture of all of those things and trying to become somewhat hyper aware of those things and not just kind of coasting through day to day and be like, well, I'm just sad. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm going to feel those feelings when I need to feel them. 100%. We're not ignoring those things, but also figuring out, okay, but what do I need to do today to maybe be happy?
Yeah. Well, I think that's so hard for some people to do, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can acknowledge it all, but then it's like taking ownership of it maybe of those feelings and being like, okay, I do have the capability to change things, right? Like if I do meditate for 10 minutes a day, will I see a difference? Probably, and that's just like, 'cause you're putting in the work and the repetition, or you're going to the gym, right? Like there also has to be something satisfying with that, where it's like you're doing something and you get to see, like physically see the work and the benefits, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh, like I work on social media or branding for like all these years, like what do I really see out of it, But like if you're going to yoga or you're going to the gym, any of that, it's like you can physically see these things.
Right.
So I think that's also satisfying.
Yes. And I think making more space for those things.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
and I know it's so cliche for people on a podcast to be talking about like, oh, self-help and discover yourself and blah, blah, blah. Like, go do yoga. Like,
Yeah.
but I think that nowadays, like those things are so cliche
Yes.
because they fall into the, well, it's true category. Like that's, again,
Well,
it
it's true.
doesn't solve all of your problems, but
Right.
we've also been saying this a lot in this episode. That's the reality.
Reality.
The reality is if you do the hard work and focus on yourself or do whatever amount of work you need to do for yourself or your business or your arts endeavors or whatever, there's going to be some result. There's going to be a change.
Yeah.
And you have to keep up with that change. You have to keep putting the work in. You have to keep the consistency and all that sort of stuff that you just mentioned of getting those reps in. But like no change happens if you don't do anything.
Right.
And you can, and also doing the same thing over and over and expecting the same results. That classic thing. It's like
Yeah.
you got to change your approach sometimes, and that then turns into just because one thing didn't work doesn't mean the entire thing's a failure. We just got
Right.
to change our approach. How do we? Okay, that didn't work. That really sucks. That's really annoying. I really thought it was going to. But if I really want this, what else can I do?
Right.
What's my other approach to doing this thing?
Yeah.
Or, hey, it didn't work. I'm fine with that. That's cool. I'm good with where it's at. I'm good with where it landed.
Yeah.
I don't need more. I don't need anything crazy, like whatever. And I think it's just like that huge storm of just like every cliche thing that everybody on a podcast says nowadays. I think those conversations are happening so much because that's kind of everybody's experiencing those things. Everybody's experiencing different versions of what worked for them.
Yeah.
And now, because the internet does exist in the way it exists, you can hear all those conversations and see everybody share all the things. Obviously, there's some fake people just doing it to make
Sure.
some money. So yes, there are those, cringy gym bro influencer people out
Yeah.
there who are just like, you fucking shut up. You don't know. Just, why? But like, I think, these conversations are so overstated and so cliche now because everybody's on a journey of self-discovery and people are unlocking all these different things and wanting to share it with everybody.
Yeah.
Like this portion of a conversation comes up a lot on this show because that it's become such a prominent part of my life that I do enjoy talking about with other people of like finding out what's worked for them or what hasn't worked and sharing what has or has not worked for me, because I do think like building the confidence and figuring out who you are and battling the imposter syndrome and all those sort of things, like it's something that so many people experience, but that also means that there's so many different possible solutions.
Right.
And the solution that might work for me might not work for you or whoever's listening. But there's probably 100 other solutions other people have shared or discovered. And that one might be I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Like meditation. I've wanted to try meditating so bad. I just haven't really tried it.
Right,
That's my
yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if it would work for me or not. I'm sure if I really, really committed, sure, it'd clear some things up. But like right now, so far, I haven't turned myself into a meditation person yet, But I've talked to other people who are like, I'm telling you, it will change how you feel.
Right.
Do it for 10 minutes a day or whatever. Start slow. Do it a couple days a week. And I'm like, right, yes, that sounds great. And then I never
Never do it.
meditate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that's not to say that it doesn't work. But for me, I'm like, okay, I haven't unlocked that yet.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't put that to the test yet. And I think that that's the important thing and the caveat that I always give with all of these things is like, what works for me might not work for anybody else. But I do think that like at a default setting, it's super important to just try it.
Yeah. Well, and just have the conversations, I think, too. Like,
Yeah.
sure, if that doesn't work for me, I think just by us talking about it, it kind of like opens up the conversation for then you to be like, well, this is something I've tried, or like, oh, I heard about this. What do you think about that? And it like immediately takes a conversation from like just surface level to being like just deep dive in. And like
Yeah.
I see myself do this all the time with people where I'm like, I meet them and then like maybe I accidentally say something that's like a little too deep and then they like follow suit and all of a sudden we're sitting there talking about like I don't know, maybe like some random trauma thing that came up from us and how we're dealing with it. And I'm like, I honestly can't remember your name right now. Like we just met.
Yes.
But I love that. Like
Yep.
I love like just skipping this surface level conversation, because then that's honestly where I'm so awkward. Like I'm such like a outgoing person, but I can be so fucking awkward sometimes.
That's
Where-
same way.
Where I'm like, if we're just like, yeah, what do you do? What do you do? Okay. I have nothing else to say to you.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh no, can we talk about like what it was like growing up as you, which this is your life now. So you get it.
Right.
So-
Yeah. That is exactly, again, that's
Yeah.
the formula. It's like I identified pretty quickly that like, hey, you just like having those deeper conversations. And for a while, I was kind of made to feel weird about that.
Right. Cause it is kind of weird.
Yeah, it is like, why do you want to, why are you asking me about this thing? Just let's talk about how the weather is, whatever it is today. And it's like, I legit don't know how to do that.
No.
Like even to the point where if I'm out at an event or like a networking event or whatever, I can't be the person who's like, let me meet 50 people tonight.
No, cannot.
I'm like, if I sit down with one person and we talk for 2 hours about their life, what a great time I had. Like I formed a good bond with one person.
Yeah.
And I didn't collect 50 other business cards in a quick, like, oh, call me if you ever needed it. I don't need what
can't
you
do
have
that.
because I don't know you. Like, I
'Cause
don't.
you are a stranger.
You are a stranger, and thank you so much for handing me your card that says you clean carpet, but I don't know why you clean carpet and where that came from in your childhood, so you're not cleaning mine.
Yeah.
But there really is that thing, though, where I feel like I'm a really good conversationalist until it's time to have a surface level conversation.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I don't know how to sell this right now. I don't know how to just be like, so what was for dinner for you last night?
Right. That's what I
Okay.
ask people.
Cool.
Because I literally don't know what else to ask.
Yes, and I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I want to be like, what's your favorite thing you've been doing recently? Oh, okay, cool. Where did that come from? What else do you want to do? How's that? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a podcast conversation wherever I can,
Right.
whether there's microphones or not. And that's silly to say, but it's just, that is just how I'm wired. Like I have to be able to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And just like you said, 10 minutes in, someone said one thing where you're like, yeah, and so then, well, in my childhood when I did that, like, I actually think that it came from, it's like,
Yes.
that's a way more fun conversation.
Totally.
Way more fun than, okay, cool. Aly, you told me about Goodland. Thanks. Where can they follow them on social media? Thanks for being here. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, cool. We're going to talk about all these things, but then we're going to talk about like, well, where does it come from? And why is that? And now
Yeah.
we're sitting here having the conversations about like, imposter syndrome's pretty difficult. Huh?
Yeah.
And what, and this is weird to navigate.
Yeah.
Because those are always going to be the conversations I'd rather have. And dig into those like deeper parts of where somebody's at. And it's also hard because not everybody wants to do that.
No.
That was the thing I've had to learn also is I'm like, well, anybody can just get into a deep conversation, right? And then there's times where it's like, no, sometimes people don't want to sit and
Yeah.
dissect their life. They do just want to sit and be like, oh, dude, you do cool things. I do cool things. All right, see you later.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, I guess that's okay for you, but those are not
Right.
the type of connections that I want to be making. Those are not the things. And so again, creating a platform like this where it is a cheat code to like, cool, we are getting to sit at a table and talk about and ramble about all the things.
Yeah.
And we're not checking our phones every 5 minutes.
I know.
And,
that is nice.
Even
though I'm
it's-
like looking at the ground, like,
Right, yeah, what's going on here? Like, well, yeah, I mean, my phone has been like buzzing in my pocket. I'm like, what is happening? What am I missing out on? But I'm also like, yeah, but I don't have to care about that right
Right.
now. Like, again, creating an intentional space just to be like, yep, let's have those weird, deep conversations and let's talk about those things. And
yeah.
I've had many of those conversations in a coffee shop,
Yeah.
sitting there and like, all right, we sit for like, most of the time if I'm scheduling like, unless it's like literally strictly for business.
Yeah.
Most of the times if I'm scheduling a meeting or something with somebody, I will literally block out like 2 to 4 hours because I just know I'm like, this is probably what it's going to be like. Unless they have somewhere to go, then of course it gets cut. But on my end, I'm like, I'm not going to do anything for at least 3 hours except talk to this person. And
I'm
like,
not surprised by that. Knowing you now, I'm not surprised by that at all.
No, it's just, I'm like, I just want to hear, if they're talkative enough, I want to hear them tell me every single thing.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, cool, I want to share every single thing with them. And then when we leave there, I want them to sit and be like, wow, that's maybe the coolest conversation I've had all week. And it's not because you're cool. It's just because we actually talked.
We actually talked. Right.
Like we actually talked and connected, and it wasn't just, yes, again, so what do you do? What do I do? All right, cool. It's been an hour. We should probably get out of here.
Awkward.
I'm like, I can't. I don't want to do that. Like
No.
I just went to a video production kind of networking event a couple weeks ago, and I've been going for a handful of years. But like every year I go, I'm like, well, I don't know why I went here. Like you see some friends, but like everybody is kind of just in quick conversation mode.
Okay.
And it's hard because I'm like, I don't feel like, I just don't fit in here.
Yeah.
Like, it's not because I'm better or worse or anything. It's like, I just don't, this type of event is not the type of event for me. Unless I can go and get into a deep conversation with one or two people.
Right.
And if that's how I spend my 2 hours there, I feel way more accomplished.
Sure.
I feel way better. And if it made them feel way better, and they're like, man, I haven't had this type of conversation in a while. I'm like, that's a fun compliment.
Yeah. It's impactful.
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this mattered.
It mattered. Yeah.
And it's not that they walk away thinking, wow, Ross is cool. Nope. It's just, wow, that mattered. That conversation mattered. And the time that we spent together mattered and was enjoyable in some way. And so again, you even saying, yep, I'd rather have a deeper conversation with somebody. I'm like, yes, thank goodness. Like, because sometimes I'm like, am I the only person who weirdly wants to talk about all the deep things for 2 hours and not just talk about what you did last week and what you had for dinner and what the weather is? Because I don't know how to operate that side of like charisma.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to turn on that, like, hey, good to see you, blah, blah, blah. Here's nothing, essentially. We're not really talking about anything. I'm just saying some stuff. I'm just going to say words.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel at like any family gathering, you know? It's like you see, I mean, which I love my family. I'm very grateful to love my family also. But we'll be like at a family dinner with my aunts and uncles who I haven't seen like in maybe a couple months. And I'm like, I don't have a single thing to say to you. I don't like they're like, how's life? And I'm like, good.
Yeah. Good.
Good.
And if I explain it any further, you're going to check out.
Yeah, right.
Like,
right.
Because
So,
you don't want to know what's behind that good.
right. It's like I'm going to have to just dive into all these things if I'm going to explain it.
Yeah. That has,
Yeah.
Do you have that, like, and again, love our families, all this, you know,
Yeah, love
absolutely.
them. Yeah.
But do you feel like that vast disconnect where, like, because I feel like I love my family, but we live on two different planets, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that deep
No.
for you, or if you're like, no, we're pretty well connected. I just don't know what to talk to them about.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I mean, I feel like we're pretty well connected. Like I feel like I'm connected with my mom, connected with my dad, connected with my stepmom. Like our family unit is very close. And honestly, like my aunts and uncles, I love all of them. It's just like, maybe it's like a group setting when like, they're just like, so what's up? And I'm like, nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like, what's up with you? Nothing.
right.
Or it's like, oh, do you want me to go into it? Because I will, but it doesn't feel like you want me to.
Yeah, is that
maybe
a
that's
real
what
question?
It is. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's like a sincere, real question. Like, hey, how's it going? And it's like, good. Or like bad. I don't know. Like,
Right. Do you want me to say good or bad? Or
Yeah.
where do I actually take this? Or
Right.
is this just the formality of like, we're seeing each other?
Right.
Like that's, because again, you know, it's like, I absolutely love my family. But like when
I love how
say-
we have to keep like reiterating that. We love our
do-
family.
Yes. I feel like you always have to throw that out there before you're like, but I don't know how to talk to them. And someone's like, oh, so you hate your
Yeah.
family?
It's like, no, we love them.
I love them. I'm just making that clear in case they're watching.
I love how you look at the camera to say it.
It's gotta make eye contact, you know? But like, there's so many different times where I am like, when they ask like, so what have you been up to? I'm like, how do I actually explain
Right.
this? Because they also kind of don't really understand what I do. And I get it because I'm a self-employed person.
Yeah.
I do whatever I want to do at any moment in time. And I'm going to start 19 brands and help other people with theirs
Great.
and do all this. Like, so they're like, they don't also know how to ask the question even. And then when I try to explain it, I am like, let's dig into this. And let me they're like, cool.
Cool. Because it is cool.
Yeah, and they're like, that's kind of all I know how to respond with. And I'm like, all right, well,
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else, or
Right.
let's not talk at all. Like,
Right.
I don't know what we do here. Like, and I've almost tapped into this, like, when I'm around my family, I actually try and tap into like what I guess I would call like a childlike wonder. I almost try to tap into like an old version of myself that they're more familiar with.
Yeah.
And I will actually try to just be more inquisitive about them than worrying about how inquisitive they are about me.
Yeah, I might do the same thing actually.
Yeah?
I just didn't recognize it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like easier for me to ask questions about them than for me to try to give them the opportunity to ask things and me explain them.
I had to work to figure that out.
Yeah.
Like that didn't come naturally to me. Like the older I got, again, like they live about an hour and 20 minutes in my very small hometown. I moved up here.
Yeah.
Kind of two different worlds,
Sure,
you know? So
yeah,
really
yeah.
when I visit home, I literally am like, I am on a different planet.
Yeah.
This is a bubble that I have entered. This is so crazy. And so like when you're having those conversations and it is just very much like, what have you been up to? You been busy? And I'm like, how do I tell you like yes and no at the same
Right.
time? Like I haven't been busy, but I have been really busy.
Right.
Like, because their version of busy is, are you making a bunch of money
Right,
working?
exactly. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no, but I have been busy enjoying life. And they're like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, what sports game did you watch?
Right.
Did your team win? Is that what you mean?
That's it. You
I'm
know,
like, I don't know.
this reminds me exactly. So my younger brother, he is a data analyst for Progressive Insurance.
Oh, okay.
But like he went to OU and he moved to Cleveland, got a job. He loves doing it. Is getting his master's, like to make more money, right? That's like why you get your master's when you're in a position like that. You want more money. And so I feel like it's really easy for him to talk about things and like, cause it's kind of straightforward, right? But like he loves it. He has an amazing life. He's super happy. And that's like him, you know? But then you have like people like us where it's like, we don't really know exactly what we're doing, but we're happy and we're like fulfilled.
Yeah.
We get to be creative. Like if my brother had to be creative, he'd probably be so just like shook. He'd be like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, if I had to like use an Excel sheet like the way you do,
Absolutely not.
like I can only put vendors in with vendor spots. That's like all I know how to do.
Yeah.
Or like inventory.
Yep.
Not like codes. So it's like there's totally different people, right? And you come from the same world, which is also confusing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially even with my siblings.
Exactly.
Again, love them a lot.
We love our siblings.
But we're relatively different people.
Right.
And they are more interested in what I do just because it's like I'm the oldest sibling, so they're just kind
So
of
am
like,
I.
"Wow, you're doing this crazy thing," you know, whatever. But like, so they're interested, but I like then try to give like the Ross encouragement to them of like, you do anything you want
Yes,
to do, and they're
yes.
like, yeah, maybe, and I'm like, no, but you can start
Yeah.
right now, just go and do the thing, and I'm like. What unlocked for me that is, you know, it's like we come from the same place. Like
Yeah.
what is going on here,
Yeah.
you know? But then those conversations are easier when, you know, my brother shows up for Thanksgiving and he, you know, works at a factory and he's mad at his manager because his manager sucks. That conversation,
Relatable.
my family's like, what's he do wrong? Fuck that guy. And I'm like,
Right.
I made a new short film and posted it on YouTube. And they're like, that's cool. They're like, you still like the horror movies? And I'm like, I sure do. And they're like,
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
You don't have a manager or anything. You manage yourself. And it's not that they don't care. Of course, they're
course,
like,
no, of course.
that's cool. That
Yeah.
is cool. But I don't know what else to ask you.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay. And back to our being more inquisitive about them. I had to like work my way up to that of like so many holiday visits home were so weird. They were just
Yeah.
getting weirder and weirder. Because again, I'm an alien visiting home to a different planet.
Yeah.
And our experiences and our views on the world and all this sort of stuff just became so separated where I was like, I don't know. But instead of trying to get them to come over to my world or level, I was like, let me be a little bit more of just maybe who they remember me as. And
Right.
cool, let me be dumb and silly and ask them questions about them.
Yeah.
Like I literally just put this into practice a couple weeks ago. I got lunch with my grandma.
Oh.
And, you know, we spent the whole time, I was just asking her about what's been going on in my hometown. I was just like, what's this? What's that? What's a new thing? And then she would tell me a new thing. And I'm like, how'd that happen? What changed? Did this and that? And like,
Yeah.
it made for a better conversation, a more
Yeah.
consistent conversation not because she doesn't care about me or what I do, but because she doesn't ultimately connect to it and doesn't totally understand.
Right.
So cool. Let's
ask you questions.
Let me ask you questions.
What's going on with you?
Let me be bright-eyed little Ross who's just asking a bunch of questions about the world, and just tell me stories about things and tell me this and tell me that, and ultimately I'm gonna feel better about that.
Totally.
So maybe she feels more connected of like, wow, we got to talk and I didn't have to be confused about what the fuck he does as a career. And I then get to be like, I had such a fun time with my grandma. I got to ask her a bunch of questions and she told me a bunch of stories. Like, that's cool. That's fun.
That's great.
There it is. And I think for a while for years I was kind of hoping, I was like, how do you guys not understand what I do with it? Like, it's a list of video, photo, design.
Yeah.
Like, that's all.
What are you not understanding?
That's just that's it, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, but you do a podcast, and what's the where can I find the podcast at? Like, is that a radio show live?
God.
You know, what's a YouTube? And I'm like, okay, never mind. Like,
confusing.
I'm doing the thing. It's going great. I don't have any money, but it's going amazing.
Right. We're happy. You know, we're fulfilled. It's cool.
And they're like, how's the business? And I'm like, awful.
Pretty bad.
But I feel great. I feel great.
And that's real.
Yes, that is the reality
That is
of
reality.
the situation.
Yeah.
Is business is real tough, but I feel great doing it.
Yeah, great. I think it's okay if that's temporary, you know? Like, when you're going and you're just like, okay, this is a way that I can connect with these people, and it's temporary, right? Like, it's almost like you're putting on this mask. As long as it's not something that, like, you have to do every day, I think that's okay.
Yeah,
Like, you can, like, mold sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And like I said, I'm not, you know, when I walk away from those situations, at least, like, I don't feel, I feel better than what I used to.
Yeah.
You know, like putting on that quote unquote mask a little bit of like, all right, let me just be inquisitive in these ways, or, you know, whatever. It makes the situation feel way better than had I just been like, why aren't you asking me about my new short film?
Right.
Or why don't you have you listened to my podcast yet? Like, I think you'd like this one guest I had on. Like, even if that's true, you know, it's like, whatever, they're not going to do that. Before we sit here for 4 hours,
I know.
I feel like that is vastly possible. And I've openly admitted I love doing that.
Yeah.
But we will not do that for the
Okay.
sake of being able to experience the rest of your day.
Sure.
I literally have one final question. Okay. Unless there is anything major that you feel like we haven't talked about, and you'd be like, dude, this is my first podcast.
I know. I'm like, wow, I don't know where the time even went.
If you're like, this is my first one, and I have to talk about this. There's this huge part of my story where I robbed a bank and hid 19 bodies and did anything crazy like that you're like,
nothing crazy yet.
If we walk out of here and I do not get to talk about this part of my story, this is a failed podcast. Does anything come to mind? Is anything major that it would feel terrible if we didn't cover?
No, I don't know. We covered so much.
We did.
What else am I supposed to talk about?
That's
it. That's it. That's me.
That's the best answer anybody could give it at the end of a podcast. What else am I supposed to talk about?
Yeah,
I don't know.
said it all, I guess.
There it is. Everybody knows everything. Well, the final thing I would love for you to talk about, one final question. I end all these episodes with the same question. So right now, we're going to play pretend a little bit. I want you to pretend like everybody in the world can hear you speak. So you got a live mic. It's attached to everybody. We're throwing logic out the window.
Okay.
They can hear you. They can understand you. You've got one moment to share one thing with everybody. What are you telling them, and what do you really, really want them to hear?
Such a big question. I mean, I think that something that I want everyone to hear is if you want something, you just have to go out and do it, because the only person that's going to make things happen is yourself. You're the only one standing in your own way. So if you want something, go do it. Dream big, make things happen, because it is possible. But it's all up to you. Okay, and support your local artists. That's the other thing. Always support your local artists, and that's it.
I love it.
Yeah.
How was that for a first podcast?
It was good.
Is that
My hands are
right?
sweaty, but I'm fine.
We got
I feel like my hands are my butt is sweaty, kind of.
You collect some sweat when you're sitting and talking about the. Okay, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Before we officially say goodbye, do you want people to go find Goodland around social, or you? Do they want them to come follow you individually? Where can people find that stuff?
I don't know if they need to follow me, but yeah, I mean, they can follow Goodland Brand. You know, they can follow Good Market Cbus. Franklinton Arts. I think that's what it is, Franklinton Arts.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then when we open the new shop in August, everyone can come there.
Yes.
I feel like maybe you should like do an episode there when we
Oh,
open.
that'd be sick.
Yeah.
That would absolutely
Yeah.
be. I'm in.
Okay, cool.
If that was an official invitation,
Yeah.
the answer is yes.
Yeah.
We'll figure out how at a different point.
Yeah, yeah.
100%. That would
Okay,
be so
cool.
much fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like you should do a live one. Like, what if we had like a glass box and you like did a live one at the market?
Oh my God, that'd be. This
See,
is the What You Don't Hear podcast booth, and it's just
Yeah.
like I'm sitting. It's like an animal display.
Yes, yes.
It's like, and this is a modern day podcast. And it's just like me being like, if you go to the gym, you'll feel better. And people are like, that sounds like a
dying.
podcast. Absolutely.
I'm dying.
Aly, thank you so freaking much.
Yeah,
this was
course.
an absolute blast.
Yeah.
We got to sit uninterrupted for 2 hours. Could have been 4.
Could have
Could have
been
been
4.
4, but we're going to stop it now before we get there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.